A former CIA analyst is suing the State Department for putting him on a watch list. Ray McGovern has filed a civil rights suit against Secretary of State John Kerry and the George Washington University Police Department. It's over an incident that happened 3 years ago at the university where McGovern was protesting a speech from then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Take a look at what happened.
Cell phone service was cut off, TV satellite signals were jammed, and internet access was blocked for nearly the entire conference.
So this is America.
The government
This is America. Who are you?
McGovern, a U.S. military veteran, says he was trying to peacefully protest when police removed him from the speech and used brutal force, leaving him battered and bruised. You can see his injuries in this photo here after the ordeal. He believes the police were on the lookout for him all along. Here's proof. This is the Be on the Lookout document that was apparently given to authorities, alerting them to be careful if they came across him and if they did, to contact diplomatic security. For more on this, Mara Verheyden-Hilliard, the executive director of the Partnership for Civil Justice Fund, joins us now. This is the organization that filed the lawsuit. Mara, welcome. So tell us more about what happened to Mr. McGovern after he was arrested there. We saw that he suffered some injuries in those photos. What happened afterward?
Well, as you can see, at least in part in some of that video, but what happened on that day is very important because all that Mr. McGovern did, and he's a well-known peace activist, a former CIA analyst. He used to do the president's daily briefings, but he became outspoken about the falsehoods that were being put together by intelligence to justify war in Iraq. And at this speech of then Secretary Clinton, all he did was stand absolutely silently and turn his back. That is all he did. And then he was brutally grabbed, he was roughed up, you see the injuries. Now the Be on the Lookout alert we discovered was issued after that. We don't believe it was issued beforehand, but as a result of this completely peaceful act of dissent, he was put on this Be on the Lookout.
I want to ask this because you would think it was a secret document. How did you get a hold of that? How did he learn that he was on this list?
Well, what we did is we undertook an investigation at the Partnership for Civil Justice Fund, trying to get documents related to the arrest and other materials. And what we found, what we were able to eventually get, and it took quite some time, was information that showed that the Department of State actually opened an investigation into Mr. McGovern, into his lawful, peaceful, free speech activities, his writings, his associations, the groups that he works with, and then they issued the Be on the Lookout alert, which isn't merely to look out for him. The alert explicitly directs that he be stopped and questioned. So it's a Fourth Amendment seizure. It's for purely peaceful and lawful activities. They are directing that law enforcement stop and seize Mr. McGovern and question him.
Now, I do want to mention that we contacted the State Department for comment. Their press officer told us not too long ago, we cannot comment on matters currently in litigation, so they're not really saying anything at this point. But it sounds like you believe that he was targeted purely for his political views.
Well, we can tell that he was targeted for his political views because the actual document we have states in the document that Mr. McGovern has engaged in considerable amount of political activism, primarily anti-war. Those are their own words. Throughout this, we were able to find that they opened this intelligence investigation. They kept it open for 7 months, even though all charges were dropped. And it's completely full of descriptions of peaceful, free speech, First Amendment protected activities. And we think it's very significant when we have Secretary Clinton, now Secretary Kerry, President Obama routinely speaking to the world, to other countries, about the importance of defending dissent. And here in the United States, we have the most peaceful form of protest, and it ends up like this.
And I believe that is precisely what the then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was talking about during that speech, which seems pretty ironic. Now, we know about this, Mara. This is just one incident. Do you believe people like him are targeted all the time? Is this just an isolated incident, or do you think that this actually happens more often than we think, people being targeted because or put on special lists because of their political beliefs?
Well, my organization has represented thousands of demonstrators in the United States who have been subjected to mass arrest, to brutality, to suppression of dissent, who are engaged in peaceful, lawful political protest. And you look at the Occupy movement in the United States. Across the United States, the federal government, local law enforcement authorities, they arrested more than 7,000 people. They shut down these peaceful encampments all around the country. So We've seen over and over again, even in recent years, the use of law enforcement, of federal law enforcement, of their anti-terrorism authority explicitly against lawful, peaceful political movements in the United States.
Okay, and lastly, I want to ask you what your organization, you represent a lot of people in similar positions you just mentioned, what you're demanding and what you think the State Department should do. I would imagine that there's people that for some reason they have suspicions on and are going to alert their officers to keep a lookout for one reason or another. Do you think that they should just stop this practice altogether?
It is illegal and unconstitutional to target somebody for a law enforcement seizure in the absence of suspicion of criminal activity. There is no suspicion of criminal activity on the part of Mr. McGovern. They are directing law enforcement to stop, seize him, and question him purely because of his political beliefs. It's unlawful, and we're demanding that in essence, be rescinded.
It'll be interesting to see how this case plays out. We've had Mr. McGovern on this show plenty of times, so we'll be keeping a close eye. I appreciate you telling us all about it. That was Mara Verheyden Hilliard, the Executive Director of the Partnership for Civil Justice Fund.